the all-American half pound, 2 pure beef patties, lettuce, tomato.
Singles going steady.
Hello, this is Singles Going Steady, the podcast dedicated to exploring great singles with a particular eye to the punk, new wave, and DIY eras of the last century. My name is Steve McGowan.
And mine's Adrian Madoc. We're in a band, The Beef People, who released a single in 1986 on our own label, Zub Records. But we're also record collectors and passionate especially about the expression of pop music perfection that is the single recording. Exploring the mystery of what makes for a great single is what propelled us to begin this podcast, which is number
013, Lucky 13.
And who's the lucky 13th Baker's Dozen single?
Today's single is by the British band The Jam and their double A side, The Dreams of Children and Going Underground, or Going Underground and the Dreams of Children.
In my mind, it's Going Underground, Dreams of Children.
I think so too. And this was released in 1980, double A side. And apparently there was a mix-up at the pressing plant. It was supposed to have been the Dreams of Children as the A side, but they made it a double A. And I think we both agree that Going Underground is probably the better tune of 2 excellent tunes.
Right.
Neither of these songs were on any Jam album. It is a true standalone single. Their first number 1 single in the UK, and it's just an amazing pair of songs.
Well, let's hear one side, and we'll see what makes, you guys can begin thinking about what you think makes it great.
Yeah, this is Going Underground by The Jam.
People might say my life is in a rut. I'm quite happy with what I got. People might say that I should strive for more, but I'm so happy I can see the fine things happening here today. A show of strength with your boys brigade. And I'm so happy and you're so kind. You want more money, of course I don't mind. My nuclear text was for atomic rhymes, and the public gets what the public wants. But I want nothing society got. I'm going underground, What if the brass bands play up, start to pound, going underground, What if the boys all sing, or let the boys all shout for tomorrow? Some people might get some pleasure out to hate me. I've enough already on my plate. People might need some tension to relax me. I'm too busy dodging between the facts. You see, here's what you get. You've made your bed, you better lie in it. You choose your leaders and place your trust. Their lies wash you down and their promises rust. Using killing machines with paper, rockets and guns. And the public wants what the public gets. But I don't give up the society wants. I'm going underground. What if the brass bands play up, start to pound, going underground. So let the boys all sing, or let the boys all shout for tomorrow. La 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 la, la 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 la. We're talking till my head explodes. I turn on the news and my body blows. Spraying cheap on my TV screen. At this point shout, at this point scream, going underground.
Okay, we've got a lot to unpack with Going Underground. The Jam are a very, very British band. In the fact that, they talk about urban British things. I don't think they ever pandered to the American audience at all. They never wrote anything that, everything was about Paul Weller, the main songwriter, his life and the way he saw things. And it has a very Britishness to it that you hear in Going Underground. Would you agree with that?
Yes, just its Britishness is a different Britishness. It's not different in degree than what we saw in XTC.
Right.
But it's...
more modern.
Right. And more urban, less pastoral, less big R romantic.
Yeah, Going Underground is kind of a rant against the conservative government at the time, and I know there's stuff in there about they're spending money on nuclear weapons and they're not spending money on the people, or whatever. And it's a very strident lyric. It's a very well written lyric.
Let this boy shout. Let this boy scream.
That's right. We were talking earlier, Adrian and I, about what a great lyric writer Paul Weller is, and many of his songs have just really astounding lyrics, and this one is strong. It's very political, but it's not sloganistic, I don't think.
No, and it doesn't lose its catchiness. The thing,
Right.
Part of what makes it a great single is not just how heartfelt it is,
Right.
and sort of how it has this political overtone. Well, not overtone. I mean, it's the tone.
Yes,
but that it's singable, danceable, screamable.
sticks in your headable.
Exactly. It's got the stick-to-itiveness that you need in a good single.
One of the things about the Jam, they brought me personally. I'm not me being a huge Beatles fan, was not really into the Who that much, but the Jam definitely went through that mod phase with the moving targets and the arrows and doing Who covers, and it kind of was, what did you say it was? A gateway drug?
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
A gateway drug to the, learning a little bit
Don't
more
do
about
drugs,
the Who,
kid.
especially. Yeah, just do gateway drugs. And learning
Musical
about
gateway drugs.
Learning about the early Who especially, which obviously the Jam cribbed a lot off of. We were talking about, in an earlier podcast, about REM, a band with very similar... a singer and a three-piece. The Jam is a three-piece. They both have the Rickenbacker bass and the Rickenbacker guitar. They have a very, very different sound.
Yes, they're putting them through their paces in very different ways.
Yes. You've got a lot more of a kind of distorted and Beatle-y kind of thing going on with the Jam, where... REM is definitely working in a southern sort of...
Southern
birds
inflected, yeah.
Right. So this is just an amazing song. It's something you should check out. Should we go ahead and listen to the other A-side?
Yeah.
The Dreams of Children. Let's take a listen to that. The Jam, 1980. Dreams of Children. Okay, The Dreams of Children. Obviously, if you're a Beatles fan, you heard that little Taxman riff that goes through the song, but it's not Taxman all the way through. It's definitely got its own thing going on. He just kind of drops that riff in there a little bit, and the backward stuff is extremely Beatlesque. This one is definitely a poppier, less strident.
Right, but there's still the lyrics are spat out.
Yes, it's kind of an underlying anger there.
Yeah, when he says optimism, I had a feeling. It's the least optimistic pronunciation of optimism ever. It's almost self-chiding.
So this single was released in between the two Jam records, Setting Suns, which was in 1979, and Sound Effects, which was in 1980. And we're going to talk about whether we think it's closer to one album or the other.
And I think that we've got sort of a child of each parent. That I think with Setting Suns, which one of those Facebook polls, your 10 favorite albums. And I had to pick 10 albums that I really thought I picked bass and that the bass has an important interest on my interest in the album was mainly in the bass playing that had a large
Bruce Foxton, the bass player.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. I don't remember my words right now, but yeah, and of course I love the playing of Bruce Foxton, and my own bass is named Bruce Lee, in part for Bruce Foxton and Bruce Thomas. But I think that Going Underground really owes its parentage to Setting Suns, one of my 10 favorite bass-related albums.
It's got that very British denseness to it. It's very thick sounding song, which a lot of the songs on Setting Suns are like that. They're very, very much of the.
It has the residue of the anger that you see in Setting Suns. Right.
Well, I when I'm looking at it, I'm thinking this is a little closer to Sound Effects, which is much more of a Beatle-y record. But, of course, I'm thinking about Dreams of Children is pointing the way towards that. There's a couple of songs on Sound Effects that use the same Taxman riff, especially the single Start, which we'll probably talk about in another podcast. So I think we agree to disagree on this. It's definitely a bridge between the two records.
Right.
Maybe half of one, half of the other. Otherwise, we'll just have to fight for it.
Well, and I think that notion of setting suns, and the sun is setting on the sons of the British Empire.
Absolutely.
That certainly, that goes through all Jam songs, but,
yes.
but particularly through Going Underground.
Yes. So,
I've got. Did you
read the
latest Jam-related news?
No, I haven't really heard that.
The Guardian had a think piece on mod haircuts, particularly now that Paul Weller has given up the old
mod mullet.
Yeah, exactly. And sort of what does that mean about the aging of us all and giving away our trademarks, but. Hairstyle, clothes style, the mod aesthetic was certainly something that was
big part of the Jam.
Central, really, to sort of scooters and
the clothes.
Going back to the original '60s mods and having a revival of that.
Yeah, we were talking earlier about how this band is so fashion conscious, and most of the bands we've listened to and talked about are absolutely not fashion conscious, but the Jam are always wearing sharp suits and skinny ties and
very Carnaby Street,
very dressed up, all matching outfits. Again, part of their extreme Britishness. You got to look sharp, and they did. They were a very sharp looking, sharp playing, amazingly talented band.
So we'll see how that new haircut comes out. It may, maybe in 20 years, that will be what gets revived.
Yes, maybe. So this is one of our favorite singles, The Jam, Going Underground, The Dreams of Children. It is not available on a regular Jam record. It's on many of the compilations. I think it's on Snap, and If you have any of those compilations, you can probably find it. And it's definitely 2 songs that you're going to want to look out for.
Right. You don't have to be a crazy Jam completist to look for them.
No, this is the really good stuff. Really, they were kind of at the height of their powers, I think, when they were doing this song.
Very much so.
They certainly had much more great music to come, but this is really a high point. Who do we hear covering this? And not Bette Midler.
Okay, well, there was mine, so I'll take it.
Okay, well, I could hear an extra track on Pinups by David Bowie doing "Dreams of Children." I can just hear him singing that.
Oh yeah, I can kind of hear that too.
I'm not sure about Going Underground, though.
And the rules for covers for us are living, dead, imaginary, fictional.
Yes.
Right.
And Bowie is all of those.
In one man.
He is. He's the man. Do we have any recommendations today?
I'm thinking about sort of Britain in the 60s and some of the great classic movies that came out of British studios in the 60s. Mm-hmm. And a recent conversation we had about black and white movies and going to see revival movies in revival houses. We've got a great retro series here in Durham.
Carolina Theater.
At the Carolina Theater. And it's just something to see a black and white film on the big screen. So if you have an opportunity to do that, do that. And, I keep talking about the kids, but the kids and their filters, right? You put on the black and white filter on your own photos on your phone.
Right.
Just pretend that they've got one of those filters on the movie.
Right. Well, I have to admit myself, when I see a black and white movie like on TV, I usually will tune it out. But we went to the theater the other day and saw a couple of Hitchcock films in black and white, and it was magnificent. It was really something.
And really, the black and white films, you see light and dark really becoming a character.
Yes.
And the use of the tones as really something that you don't get in the complexity when color comes in the mix.
I agree. My recommendation today is a documentary about the Jam. It's called The Jam, About the Young Idea. And it's an interesting story. They do talk to the members of the band. They talk about the history of the band, and it's very interesting. But the main conceit of the documentary is that they talk to Jam fans and get their impressions of the band, filter the band through the fans. And some of the fans are just unbelievable. One of them is Martin Freeman, the famous actor.
Tim off of The Office.
That's right. And I know him as being on the Sherlock series, but apparently he was in all those Lord of the Rings movies, too.
He was in the Hobbit movies.
Okay, whatever. I didn't see them.
Okay, I read all those books. But I know it's Stephen Colbert, but I've got some cred.
And there's a whole sequence with a Jam fan who's from Japan, from Tokyo, and this woman travels from Tokyo to Britain to see the Jam, sees the Jam, is totally blown away, and doesn't ever go back to Japan. She stays
I'm
in
disabled.
Britain. Now that's a fan.
Now that's a show that makes you forget your home country.
That's a good show. It's a great little documentary, and it's pretty fun. It's good to watch, and I would definitely recommend that. Anything else today?
Well, I was going to recommend that what you can do is turn the color down on your monitor, and you can kind of combine both of our recommendations. You have a black and white version of the Jam documentary.
Wow. That's just forward thinking, I think. So, Singles Going Steady 013, The Jam, Going Underground, and Dreams of Children. Check it out. It's great stuff. And we will talk to you next time.
Yes, I hope you have a feeling of optimism.
Goodbye. To learn more about the artists and recordings we just talked about, visit our website at zubrecords.com and click on the Singles Going Steady icon.
You'll also find links to the persons, places, and things we recommend, and much more.
You can find episodes of Singles Going Steady on our website or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
Singles Going Steady is brought to you by the power and majesty of Zub Records. Zub Records. Smart sounds for sharp people.